Good afternoon and welcome to Generation Change. I'm Roya Fahmy. We're at the Hookah Lounge in Scranton, Pennsylvania. 1 year ago, we were at the University of Scranton at the Diversity Fair celebrating Middle East peace with comedians, writers, and newscasters Dean Obeidallah and Scott Blakeman. Dean and Scott met in New York City and decided to develop a comedy routine to promote peace and hope for people in the Middle East and around the world. Let's go to that footage right now. Tonight we're at the University of Scranton in Scranton, Pennsylvania at the DeNaples Center for Diversity Fair 5. The Diversity Fair here at the University of Scranton is put on by the Office of Equity and Diversity and its director, Mrs. Rosette Adair. The topic of this evening and tomorrow and the series of lectures this week has been the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, the analysis of the conflict, and what is the possible resolution. Tonight's special guests are Dean Obeidallah and Scott Blakeman. Their show is called Stand Up for Peace. Stand Up for Peace was created by Dean and Scott in order to foster better relations between Arab Americans, Jewish Americans, Israelis, and Palestinians. They truly feel that comedy is a way to encourage dialogue. Dean and Scott are nationally and internationally known. They've appeared on ABC's The View, CNN as guest analysts, and of course on Comedy Central. Dean and Scott have been on Israeli television, Arab television, Japanese television, and other venues around the world. We are so excited for Generation Change to meet Stand Up for Peace. And we have Sarah. Sarah attended some of the workshops today. Sarah, can you tell us, we know your name, what your major is when you're graduating, and something that you learned from some of the workshops?
Sure. I'm a junior occupational therapy major, so I graduate in 2014. And I went to the Diversity Fair to learn more about the stigmas related to disabilities. So I went to the workshop by one of my OT professors, so I just really enjoyed learning about her life story, about the stigma that she solved with her brother who had a cognitive disorder. So I just learned that, we talk about it all the time, but just they are real people. Talk to them. That's what they really want. They don't like when people talk above them or talk to their family members. They know what's going on. They know what bothers them the most. So I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot and forgotten about. So that's
okay. Sarah, thank you. So I think everything that you just said about disability can be translated into racial and cultural issues too. There are two comedians coming here tonight, Dean Obeidallah and Scott Blakeman. Okay. And their show is called Stand Up for Peace. So they're going to be talking about the Arab-Israeli issue, and their way of dealing with it is through comedy and exactly what you said. Just address people, talk to them. Wouldn't you agree that that translates into issues about race and culture as well?
Yes, definitely.
We're here with one of the graduate MBA students at the University of Scranton, and he has attended most of the workshops today, and we would like to hear from him. Hi, can you tell us your name and your studies and some of your activities here and what you learned today?
Nice. My name is Salih Al-Mabdel. I'm a student at the MPA program at the University of Scranton. Mm-hmm. I am engaging most of the students' activities, clubs, associations, presenting actually the Saudi Students Club. Mm-hmm. Today we had a great event, the Diversity Fair, and the workshop related to that event. It actually helped us a lot to understand the other perspectives from other communities. We don't have to give judgments based on our point of view. We have to understand that there are a lot of point of views out there, so which might be wrong for me, but it might be right for other people. So everything is right, but we are different. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. That's an excellent way of putting it.
We live in New York, which is a great city. We had a hurricane, but this shows you how hard immigrants work. Every restaurant in New York was closed during the hurricane, except Chinese restaurants. How do I know it? I look out my window, there's a Chinese guy on a bicycle delivering food because somebody ordered delivery in a hurricane. Okay, I ordered delivery in a hurricane. Because I knew he'd be there, and there he was pedaling, and the trees are going by, and he's pedaling like a Chinese E.T., just pedaling. Coming to bring me my food, which I love. It's called chicken with mixed, you guys know chicken with, you guys like Chinese food?
Yeah.
Is it popular here in Scranton?
Yeah. Sure.
I love chicken with mixed vegetables. You guys know chicken with mixed vegetables? Now here's the truth, New Yorkers. Some Chinese restaurants, they're not serving chicken. To save money, they were catching pigeons and serving pigeons.
No.
Sounds gross. I've been eating it for years. I enjoy it. You go furniture shop, it is just painful. And we went to a store, they had a sale, they had rugs on the ground, the size of from here to here. Like one of these, this is actually a good presentation. You probably can't see there's a metal marker. From here to here. They had like 30 or 40 of them on the ground. And I go to the salesman, because it's sale day. How much is this rug? It's not a joke. I go, how much? He goes, $35,000. It was $35,000, and he said it like he was saying $9.99. He goes, $35,000. And I go, I'm a comedian, and I go, is it a flying carpet? Is that be worth it? I can fly around New York.
But I just talked to my parents a little while ago. My mother is a lot like Dean's mom. Very similar. My mother left me a message earlier. She said, Scotty darling, please eat. And then she ended the message, it's your mother. Oh, really? I had no idea. Thank you for pointing it out. No, I went to in Philly, they have the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. It's in a closet, but no, we've got a couple, and yeah, no, there was a guy. What was it? Sean Green. He was on the Mets a few years ago, and we said, oh, "Sean Green, Jewish." And one day he dropped a fly ball. I was like, "Nah, he converted." I'm a big fan of President Obama. He's done a lot of things that he hasn't even gotten credit for. Like talk about having a tough job, though, right? I mean. People criticize you every day. He even got criticized for this. He had the first Passover Seder ever in the White House. Now, who would criticize him for that, right? The Republicans did. They said, Obama had a Seder, but there was no media coverage. What's Obama hiding? And Obama's great. He said, the matzah. That's what we hide for Passover.
We have just heard a hilarious comedy show from Dean Obeidallah and Scott Blakeman. We're here with 3 students today getting their perceptions and their information on what they thought about the show. So we have Susanna, Sarah, and Christina. Why don't you tell us what you thought about the show and what you learned today?
Sure. I really did enjoy this part of the day. You know, the whole diversity fair has been going on since this morning, and I really did like how it ended with, you know, the whole day they were talking about important issues going on in different countries, from politics to religion to like stereotypes that are going on, but how it ended was, you know, with comedy and just talking about hope for the future and how the young generation really is the hope for the future, and that we can use things like comedy and the arts, as you did say before, to really help people see just different points of opinion and different points of view, not just, you know, be so self-centered and think of, you know, other races and other cultures as something maybe bad or foreign just because you're not used to it. Just be open to other cultures, and I think that was a really important thing that people learned.
Thank you, Susanna. And we'll hear from, this is your sister, Sarah, right?
I really liked the part of the day where we could just go around the room and visit different booths. They were set up from like different countries, and I learned a lot of different stereotypes, which I didn't know existed before. But I think it's really, after like hearing everything, I think it's really important to try and beat them down. And yeah, that was my favorite part of today.
Christina had a very good question about a video that's circulating right now on the internet, which is really spreading a lot of hate and prejudice. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. As you know, that there's a video online which some people have actually blamed for some of the escalating violence in Libya. It's supposed to be a parody on the real life of Muhammad, but it's completely false, and it's completely meant to hurt people. And I like the fact that this diversity fair and even the comedy show that we watched was almost like an anti-version of that, where some people were trying to break down positive relations and they're trying to build them up. And I just thought that was great.
This is Roya Fahmy for Generation Change after the terrific Dean and Scott show. So Dean Obeidallah is here with us and we're going to chat with him a little bit. Dean, thank you so much for a wonderful show, and I'm wondering if you could let us know what made you and Scott get together. You said, were you joking when you said you really met on a bus in New York, or you really did?
We knew each other before that. Yeah. I was on that bus ride that we actually talked about doing something together jointly to bring Arabs and Jews together and Muslims and Jews together. So it really wasn't that bus ride just joking around, because we performed for a few years before that together at different shows, not like this, but in the clubs in New York City and in random comedy shows. And we were always friends. We both like politics a lot, and we both have a great interest in the Middle East and Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So we thought, let's try to do something to try to make a difference if possible.
Great, great. Thank you so much. I'd like to ask you where you develop your material, and then I'd like you to talk about Here Come the Muslims, your new documentary that's coming out. The Muslims are coming. The Muslims are coming. Yes.
Right. My material comes from the news, from events going on in the world, from social issues, from political issues, also autobiographical. I'll look inward to my own life and try to find topics that I think could be funny and that we can do that I think people can relate to. A lot have to do with politics. A lot of my comedy is political, a lot about American politics. I'm really intrigued by American politics. I find it very interesting. So it's really that, and sometimes it just happens, like something will come up, something observational, I'll see something, I'll write a joke about it. But it's a process, and I enjoy the writing a lot, and that's always fun. And then the movie, the documentary is called The Muslims Are Coming. I'm co-directing it with my friend Nagin Farsad, who's Iranian-American.
Right, right.
And it's really using comedy to try to counter misconceptions about Muslims. We went to the Deep South. We met a lot of great people. All the shows were for free because we wanted to reach people beyond our community. We wanted to reach actually conservative Christians, was really the target of our whole tour was. And we went to the Deep South. We went to the Far West. We met some great people. And we want to share that through our film, because people have some really interesting questions for us about why do Muslims do this or that, and hopefully it answers questions that other people have when they watch the film. Like, oh, I had the same question. Why don't Muslim women cover up? Or any question about all different things, from the hard ones to the more fun, light, trivial ones. Plus, there's a lot of stand-up in it, and there's some great celebrities in it, like Jon Stewart from The Daily Show and Rachel Maddow from MSNBC, and Soledad O'Brien from CNN, and Ali Velshi and Asif Manvi, and some great comedians, Louis Black, David Cross, Janine Garofalo. So it's really, to me, I think it's a fun movie. I think people will laugh, they'll find it enjoyable, but I also think there's a message they will get from it, and they'll hopefully learn things they didn't know about Muslims before.
This is Roya Fahmy for Generation Change. We have just had a terrifically hilarious show with Dean Obeidallah and Scott Blakeman. Scott is here with us, and we're going to ask him a couple of questions. Scott, I'm really interested in the bus ride that you had with Dean. Where did you guys come up with this idea for the show?
Well, bus rides can lead to peace sometimes. Dean and I used to live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, across the street from each other, and we knew each other from the comedy world. And one day, we happened to be on the crosstown bus that goes from one end of Manhattan to the other, and by the time we got from the east side to the west side, we had an idea. Let's do a show with Jewish and Arab American comedians. Let's call it Stand Up for Peace. And initially, we didn't know how far it would go. We said, let's do a fundraiser for Seeds of Peace. So that was one bus ride, one dip of the Metro card, and that's how it came about.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Scott, where do you get your material from? I have to ask every comedian where they do that.
Well, it starts off, the most important thing in my life is my family and my parents. I'm so lucky to have my parents and sister and all the, everybody, and, Jewish family,
Yes.
I'm the least loud, and there's probably a lot more funnier people than me. So I think just being part of a lively family and people expressing their opinions and talking, and that's how it began. And then, of course, I'm a news junkie too, so whatever I see on the news or read in the paper, and whatever experience I go through, whether it's being a liberal pundit on Fox News, which certainly leads to observations, and I think it's just all out there, and when you're a comedian, it's just everything is ripe for the picking.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So I want to hear more about Fox News, and I want to hear about the other news channels that you participate in. Tell us about your blog. Tell us about everything that you're doing right now.
Sure. Well, my website is liberalcomedian.com, and where did I get that? And I also contribute regularly to the Huffington Post.
Okay.
And in the last 3.5 years, or basically soon after President Obama was elected for the first time, I became a regular pundit on FoxNews.com Live and some appearances on Fox and Friends. And I have to say, as much as I poke fun at them and have problems watching Fox News sometimes, it's been one of the best experiences of my life being in that situation, because, you know, we all tend to surround ourselves with people who agree with us, and to be in a situation where people definitely didn't agree with me, but I found it really relates to our Stand Up for Peace show about finding common ground and establishing bonds of friendship with people, in which I have done. I've met a lot of nice people there, and I think it's important. I wish more liberals and Democrats would go on Fox News, and conversely conservatives go on MSNBC, because I don't think it's healthy for the country when people just have their own channel, they listen to one voice, and they blindly accept it. And here with, you know, at Scranton with the diversity fair, we were talking about important words, and someone said, you know, curiosity. I think this is such an important thing in terms of bringing people together. You can't just accept what one person says, and you have to learn about people. So being on Fox News has been a great experience. I don't need coffee anymore. I just gets my heart rate going, and I'm set. You know?
You're up till 3 in the morning.
I'm set for the day.
Thank you so much, Scott. And let's catch up with Dean and Scott now. It's a year later. Dean Obeidallah, of course, is a commentator on CNN and has a regular program. Scott Blakeman continues to do comedy, teach, and reach out for peace in New York City. Now, let's go beyond New York City to the Middle East and the globe. The Middle East is, of course, a very different place than it was a year ago. John Kerry is now our Secretary of State. Egypt continues its revolution and its rebirth. Syrian refugees are in Lebanon, and Jordan is trying to assist as well. Israel bravely continues to try to forge agreements with Iran. And let's see if we can continue the message of peace and hope that Dean Obeidallah and Scott Blakeman taught us. This is Roya Fahmy wrapping up this edition of Generation Change.